Next, if you're doing major work on a home, whether that's knocking through a couple of rooms, adding an extension, or even, as in our next story, building the whole thing from scratch, you'll be putting a lot of trust in your contractors. You're paying them for their expertise, so you'll obviously be hoping that makes it much less likely that anything will go wrong. But here's a grand design that did go very wrong. Tens of thousands of pounds were spent on creating a dream home in Cornwall. Unfortunately, the result was not what was expected, and there's no money left to put things right. This is Gwyddian Towns on Cornwall's southern tip. Its climate and relaxed pace draws in thousands of holidaymakers, as well as people like the owner of this beachfront house, eager to start a whole new life. Wow, that's fantastic. You walk in, the first thing you see is the sea, and it's as if you're being drawn out towards it. It's absolutely wonderful. It all looks perfect, but sadly, looks can and do deceive. There are many issues here, but the main one is that every time it rains, water comes into the house. So Pauline Taylor has to lay down plastic sheeting to protect the floorboards and towels to soak up the rain. Pauline's problems began in 2003 after she inherited a run-down timber chalet that used to stand on this plot. She and her husband Michael made the decision to plough everything they had into transforming it into a luxury B&B.
We sold our property and then decided to build here, which seemed such a good idea at the time. It was our dream.
The build was going to cost more than £300,000, so Pauline and Michael were determined to do everything right. They appointed an architect and found a builder they were happy with.
He sent me loads of properties that he had done. He told me he was used to doing basements. He told me he had a lot of experience with English heritage, and I felt quite confident in him.
They were instantly pleased with the designs from the architect too.
We loved the design. It was everything we wanted, and we said, yes, we'll go ahead with it. And at that point, everything seemed absolutely wonderful.
Pauline made clear she couldn't be on hand to supervise the project all the time. Michael had suffered a severe heart attack that left him with short-term memory loss, so she was his round-the-clock carer.
One of the first things I said to everybody that was involved in this build was the fact that I was a 24/7 carer for my husband. Living with somebody without a memory is quite difficult.
That's really hard.
Very difficult.
Work started in July 2009 and the couple moved into rented accommodation for the duration of the job. But as the project went on, there began to be disagreements with the builder about elements of the job. Pauline became worried that the cost of the build was going up faster than the house was being completed, so she raised her concerns with the architect.
This has got to stop. We're not lottery winners. We have a set amount for this build. And she said, well, what can you afford? And I said, well, we're at that limit now. And it was purely just a shell.
The job went on 6 months longer than planned, and on top of the £300,000 the couple were expecting to pay, cost a further £90,000. But problems were becoming clear. Most crucially, the timber frame didn't fit properly, with large gaps letting the rain pour in. Even so, the house was deemed fit enough for Pauline and Michael to move in, though she was then given a snagging list of more than 100 things that needed finishing off. Had you paid the builder all the money that he said he was owed by this point?
I had paid him up until his final invoice, which was for £29,000.
Pauline withheld this final payment because she wasn't happy with the build. And a week after they moved in, Pauline had a call from the builder saying he'd visit soon to work through that snagging list. But he didn't come then, and Pauline has not seen or spoken to him since. And have you tried to pursue him?
We tried to track him back, and he went into liquidation.
It turned out that the builder didn't have professional indemnity insurance. If he had, it might have made things easier to resolve. But in the absence of any simple solution, and still hoping that either the builder or the architect might help to put things right, Pauline spent the next 2 years mopping up the water that poured into the house every time it rained and caring for her husband.
Every morning he would his first things he would say to me is, "Are you my wife?" And I would say, "Yeah, of course I am. Sorry, you're stuck with me." And the second question would be, "Where do we go for breakfast?" Meaning, this must be a hotel. Where do we go for breakfast? Because he just didn't know where he was.
So stressful.
Heartbreaking.
Shortly after that, Michael died, and though a further 2 years have passed since then, the house is no closer to being finished. Pauline has no money to do the repairs, but cutting her losses and selling up isn't the best option either, as the state of the property means it hasn't passed its building inspection.
I feel like I'm sitting in a prison because of the problems.
In practical terms, what would you like to be able to do now?
I'd walk away tomorrow. I'd walk away tomorrow. So many times I've been so close to just walking out that door, locking it up, getting in my car and just drive and drive and drive.
We asked Chartered Surveyor Richard Hocking to inspect the house and give his professional opinion.
This house gives the appearance of being well constructed, etc. But as soon as I come in, I can see immediately that the standard of finish is not what I would expect. But here we've got a fairly significant shrinkage crack where the ceiling is joining the main timber member. And if we follow on round the corner, we can see further significant shrinkage where the internal plasterboard has been butted up. And that is beginning to make me think, well, actually, if that's the way they've finished that, I wonder what else is not as it should be.
In fact, Richard finds plenty of other problems, particularly with the timber doors and with the fireplace.
We've got a timber Bessemer, but it's far, far too close to the fireplace. And I wouldn't be at all surprised that if I actually look down under here, and yes, I can see that the underside of that is very badly scorched. If there's a fire in there and the flue heats up, over time there's a very strong possibility that that timber will also get badly scorched and create a fire risk. Bearing in mind we're in a timber frame property, that is a very significant concern.
So, Richard, can this building be saved?
I think, Julia, the answer to that is probably yes, but what concerns me is the cost of undertaking that work. I would probably put a conservative estimate on, somewhere in the region of perhaps £80,000.
When we spoke to the builder who'd done the work, he disputed what we'd been told, saying that far from him ripping Pauline off, he feels ripped off by her. He claims that Pauline still owes him around £40,000 to £50,000 for the work, and that his business went into liquidation as a direct result of problems created by this project, which has caused him a great deal of physical and emotional stress. He says the job started late because the specifications and drawings were incomplete, and that bad weather and changes further along the way not only caused further delays, but restricted the ability to carry out work as agreed. He stressed that features such as the timber frame and fireplace were built to the specifications provided by the architect. And while he had several times expressed reservations about the design, it would be unfair to blame him for any design failures. He's adamant that Pauline's failure to pay the final invoice voided the contract with her, which is why he did not rectify the list of snags after the building's completion. And he told us he's considering whether to instruct solicitors to claim redress against Pauline. We also wrote to the architects firm for their comments. They said that although in 2011 Pauline had told them that she intended to bring a claim against them, the basis of her claim and what she was alleging were far from clear. When they heard nothing further, they assumed there was no claim or cause for complaint, and as such, do not consider it appropriate to comment. Meanwhile, Pauline is using what little money she can raise to make her house watertight, but she doesn't know how she will ever get to the point of completing this grand design gone so horribly wrong.
I just can't imagine waking up not having to worry about this house. I just long for the day when I can, and to move on.